On a day much like today, a pretty normal Saturday, nothing special, Miriam was out doing her weekly shopping when she heard someone call her name. Miriam, Miriam, she heard. She turned around and there she saw a familiar face. It's me, Siphokazi. Do you still remember me? You helped me read when I was in grade 4. Guess what? I'm in grade 7 now. Thank you so much for believing in me. Let me tell you where this magical intersection of lives first began. Miriam comes from a small community. She lives with her mom and 2 siblings. She's the first in her family to finish grade 12. Miriam's mom, a part-time domestic worker, had dreams of her own, but she was forced to drop out of school so that she too could provide for the family. Miriam's life has been a series of uphill battles filled with uncertainty and a shadow of hopelessness. But Miriam was determined to break free from the cycle of poverty, fueled by her mother's dreams and aspirations. Miriam was a bright and curious child, much like her mother once was. Some would argue that Miriam's odds were better, but she struggled with her mental health. Miriam also dreamed of studying further, but she knew that she needed to find a job so that she could provide for the family. In South Africa, 84% of young South Africans have to make a tough decision: buy food or look for a job. Location and socioeconomic networks all determine one's access to opportunities. Miriam was one of them, one of the 1 in 3 South Africans not in education, employment, or training. But there's hope. Miriam heard about the YearBeyond program through a teacher. YearBeyond is a national youth service program initiated in the Western Cape exactly 10 years ago. The program targets 18 to 25-year-olds and provides them with meaningful work experience, allows them to develop themselves personally and professionally, and gives them the support so that they are able to transition on to their next. Miriam got in. She started working as a catch-up tutor at a local primary school, supporting grade 3 and 4 learners both in and after school with literacy and numeracy. It is here where she met the bubbly Siphokazi. It was at a different primary school to where Miriam once was, but the site was the same. You see, the school was overcrowded. The teacher-learner ratio far exceeded the national average. Siphokazi struggled to read. She had high levels of absenteeism, and she was at risk of dropping out. In South Africa, 8 out of 10 children cannot read for meaning by the age of 10. And of those who start grade 1, just over 50% of them make it to matric. Miriam was more than just a tutor to Siphokazi. She was the caring and supportive adult that Siphokazi desperately needed. It was a transformative experience. Miriam's confidence increased. She developed a love for reading. And all of a sudden, Siphokazi started to dream about different possibilities for her future. You see, the research tells us that children who do well despite hardship had at least a relationship with one caring and supportive adult. Miriam was lucky as well because she had a caring adult, her mentor. YearBeyond's intentional focus on mentorship meant that Miriam now received the support and guidance that she desperately needed. Miriam was also able to access the program's ecosystem of support. That meant that Miriam now had access to mental health services and a range of resources. Miriam found her purpose. She could see the impacts of her efforts. Miriam developed a love for learning and teaching. She's now working as an after-school practitioner at a local NGO in her community, and she's pursuing a career in education. In fact, much like Miriam, 44% of YeBoneers, the young people on the program, stay in the education sector once they've completed a year of service. And a further 31% of those go on to pursue an education qualification. Perhaps we're inspiring the next generation of teachers. You see, YearBeyond is more than just a program. For many, it's a lifeline. Every year, close to 3,000 young people gain more than just skills and meaningful work experience. They also find a sense of belonging, community, purpose, and increased hope. 74% of alumni report that they continue to serve in their communities after their year of service. 91% say that they are more hopeful about the prospects of their future once they graduate. We have thrown a small pebble in the ocean, and we are starting to see the ripple effects. Young people are playing their part in a big education ecosystem. They are supporting teachers, learners, and schools. They are providing caregiver workshops to parents, equipping them with the tools needed to best support their children. And they are the after-school champions that are ensuring that no child is left behind and that we close the opportunity gap between the haves and the have-nots. You see, as a first-generation student myself, someone who has battled my own mental health challenges, who has benefited from after-school programs and mentorship, I understand the transformative power of opportunity, the importance of access, and the value of mentorship in supporting young people on their journey. It is this real experience for me, Wayde Groep, a brown boy from a small suburb in Gqeberha. It is this boy who's inspired and who has experienced this work, and that drives me to ensure that every young person in this country gets access to an opportunity and that no child is left behind. We need to change how we talk about young people in this country. We need to stop talking about youth unemployment as a problem or a crisis that we need to solve. We need to talk about a youth dividend. And then we need to think about how we are able to build bridges that harness young people's potential. Because when we invest in youth, we are developing a new generation of responsive, caring, supportive parents and citizens. Take Miriam, for example. She's found a love for reading and learning. She'll very likely pass that on to her child, her nephew, or niece. In fact, to many other children in the community. When we invest in youth, we reduce the burden on the economy. Because we know that the longer someone stays unemployed, the more difficult it is for them to get a job, adding further pressure on an already constrained fiscus. But most excitingly, when we invest in youth, we are unlocking a generation of inspired, innovative, and more hopeful young people. We need to change the language from crisis to one of possibility, from despair to one of hope. Because it is when we see the potential and value of young people and the role that they can play in shaping our collective future. Thank you.